Hey, what's up, guys? It's Eric with RU Game, and today I am here covering The Crew, which is the newest free with gold game if you have Xbox Live. It is free for the second half of the month, and it is a really fun racing game. It is made by Ubisoft and Ivory Tower. It came out about 2 years ago, the base game did. There's an expansion out for it now called Wild Run, which I haven't tried. It's an add-on, and it's $25. The base game is $30. At some point, I'm going to download it because I've actually had a lot of fun with this game, a lot more than I expected, because I'm not really into racing games that much. The last game I played that was racing was, for more than an hour or two, probably was Burnout on PSP, the Slim. So that's how long it's been since I've actually played a racer for more than an hour or so. So what I want to do next is I want to very quickly go through the pros and cons of the game. Racers, I feel like, are more one of those games where you either like the racing game or you don't, based on what style of racing games you like. So I'm not going to spend 20 minutes describing the game in depth. It's kind of one of those things where you're going to have to play it and find out whether you like it or not. And I'm just going to give you my opinion about what I like about it and what I don't like about it. So first we're going to go through pros. To start off with, it is really, really fun to play with friends. It has a lot of glitches and bugs, but they're more of the funny type, like kind of how you get in Fallout games and Skyrim and Elder Scrolls games and stuff like that. If you're playing not with friends and these happen to you during a race, it can be kind of annoying, but mostly it's laughable glitches and bugs that just don't make sense, like in terms of physics and the mechanics. The next point I want to make is that it's very arcade-like, which I really like. I'm not into super realistic racing games, and so for me, The Crew is a game that I really enjoy in terms of racing. You can test drive every single car that you can buy. That is a really big thing for me. I feel like in a lot of racers, there's not that option, and I can go and drive a car that I have to buy with the in-game money. I can go and test drive a car that I can buy with real money, like downloadable content, and that's really cool. There's not a ton of cars, depending on what racers you play. You will think that there's not a ton of cars. It only has about 81 base, and then I think the DLC is supposed to add about 50. So altogether, if you have the game and the DLC, about 140, whereas racers like Forza have about 200 cars base. So significantly less. But for me, I feel like at no point are you going to actually drive all 81 or 140 cars on the game, so that's not a really big deal for me. I also tend to, in racing games, I find a car or two that I really, really like, and I drive those a lot. The customization on the cars is really, really cool. It is the best customization I've seen in a racing game in terms of looks. There's a ton of decals. There's a ton of different specs that you can add to cars to make them for different racing types, like dirt or performance or circuit or street. And it all looks really, really cool. I don't think I found any customizations yet that didn't look cool and I thought were really ugly. Speaking of the cars and customization, you can switch your cars and what spec they are on the go. So you can be racing around the world, pop up your mobile device in the game, and within seconds be racing a different car of yours. You can just switch right in the world. You don't have to go all the way back to your garage or fast travel all the way back to your headquarters in order to switch, which is really, really cool. The next thing is, which is a big plus for me, is the drop-in, drop-out gameplay style. So when you're playing the game, it'll tell you when other people that you're friends with pop up or come online, and you can go to a little menu on your phone, invite them to the game, all the while you're driving your car still. They'll join your game, and you can start an event. And it's just really, really easy to use. I wish more games had drop-in, drop-out gameplay options, because it makes the game so much more enjoyable when I don't have to sit through 6 loading screens in order to play with a friend. The co-op, speaking of co-op, is really hilarious. You're going to get into a lot of incidents where just weird things happen, like glitches and bugs. And like I said earlier, they're usually really funny. Even if you have to start the race over, it's just really enjoyable to play with your friends and just have fun and laugh. And the glitches and bugs in this case are something that adds more to the enjoyability of playing co-op. Also, on that point, the racing system while playing with your friends is really interesting. For instance, if I start a game, like a race, that I have to do, that's in my quest log, and I get third place and my friend gets first place, we both complete the event. We both win it, and we don't have to start over. In that, in the underlying that, I should say, for instance, if my friend gets first and I get third, he'll get a gold medal and I'll get a silver or a bronze medal. Your medal determines what part you get to add to your car to upgrade it. So one of my biggest problems with a lot of racers is that they're very high stress, where I feel like I really don't want to do this race 15 times, but if I don't win it, then I have to, and so I feel stressed out when I'm doing the race that I have to win, and I kind of tend to mess up. But when you're playing with friends and you kind of are cooperatively trying to win the race, it's a lot less stressful and a lot more fun, which is really cool, and that's something I really like about the crew. I think one of the other biggest things that I really like about the game is that you can there's mini events that you can do when you're driving around. So the map of the game is pretty big, but there's little mini events that you can do when you're driving to and from. So for instance, if you drive from Detroit to Miami, it's probably like 20 miles or more. But along the way, if you set a waypoint, it'll bring up little events for you to do while you're driving there. For instance, you just drive through like little gates, and then it'll tell you to go off a jump, and depending on where you land after you jump, it'll give you a different like part to equip on your car, and it just makes racing from one town to the next to be able to do events that much more enjoyable. There's a few other pros. I'm not really going to cover them because I feel like I said, it's a game that you just kind of have to play and find out for yourself if you like it or not. I don't want to go over 50 pros and 50 cons. So now we're going to go into the cons. I really only have a few for me personally, which is the glitches, the graphics, and that it's slightly pay to win. The glitches, like I said, for some people it's going to be really annoying. If you're playing by yourself and you glitch out and you get stuck on something or some weird physics happen and your car goes flying in a weird direction, it's going to be really annoying. However, if you're playing with your friends, like I usually do, usually when I'm playing the crew, it's playing with friends, it's really not that big of a deal. You laugh it off and you kind of keep going or restart the event just because you're having fun with your friends. The graphics are not the best. They're not bad, but for people who are into games like Forza and like the newer Need for Speed, you're going to look at the graphics and you're going to kind of say like, oh wow, I wish the graphics were a little better. But for me, like I said, not a big deal. The last thing is, like I said, pay to win. There is that you earn money in the game, but there's also a form of money that you can buy. And you can use that money to buy cars in the game. Now, I say slightly pay to win because if you consistently play the game, you can afford most of the cars. There are some cars where I would say, yeah, you definitely need to spend real money to get that car, because I'm not going to get $1 million and blow it on one car. That's way too much time spent just to get one car. But if you're not playing the PvP aspect of the game and you're just playing with your friends and you're just using cars, it's really not that big of a deal. I'm not super into PvP in games, so that's not a big deal for me. For some people, it might be a bigger deal. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of pros and cons is something that I'd call so-so, which is the story and the connection to the player. There is a story in the game. While the story is interesting, I really don't feel that much attachment to the story. And some people might not like the game because of that, but for me, it's just a racing game, so I'm really just trying to have fun with my friends and play a racing game. you don't really connect that much to the player. You can't customize the player at all. You're just a white guy with a beard. You look like a hipster. You don't really see him that much unless you switch the camera to be able to see like the front seat. So not that big of a deal, like I said, for me. For some people, you might not like the game just because the story is kind of weak. Alright, so now what I want to do for you guys is I want to score the game. Now, usually I only do one score, but this time I'm going to do two. The first score I'm going to give it is an 8 out of a 10, and that is if you like non-realistic racing games like me. I don't really like games where you have to focus on every single aspect of your car and worry about your brakes and your handling and your acceleration and like upgrading your motor and all that separately. So for me, The Crew is a game that I really like, and I personally would give it an 8 out of 10. Now, looking at scores online of the game based on the opposite of that, which is if you do like realistic games, I would say that I would probably give this game a 6 out of 10. It is really arcadish. You don't have to focus on the things I just talked about. And for someone who likes games like Forza and is really into that type of racing game, this might not be the game for you. For me, however, to wrap up this whole thing, I feel like this game is a welcome change from racers that have come out in the past few years, because everyone seems to be going towards that more realistic, best graphics possible, most lifelike game that you can make. And for me, especially with racing games, that is not always the most fun game. It might be the best looking or the best running, but it's not always the most fun. So, just a few things to think about. If you guys liked the video, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to comment in the comment section below and tell us what you think of the game. Go download it. It's free. It's a really good game. It's usually $30. Like I said before, the DLC is $25. If you like the game, you can buy the DLC. It adds a ton of extra content. We will see you next time, and I hope you guys enjoy the video.